Hi, Math 257. We're heading into Module 6. We're getting closer to that probability and statistics assessment, so make sure you start setting up for that and reach out if you're struggling. This week we're going to cover two big topics: measures of spread, which will include something we discussed last week, the interquartile range, or the IQR, and it will also discuss mean absolute deviation, or MAD, and which is a precursor to standard deviation. So you may have heard of those words before, but you really need to be able to understand what they mean and interpret them. So this week it is rated red, and the reason it is because the calculation by hand can be a little bit tricky, but the most important thing is that interpretation, which you have to be careful when you are using the mean. You will use the mean absolute deviation to describe the spread if you think the mean was the best measure of center, like we talked about last week. Whereas if you're using the median as the best measure of center, maybe because there are outliers in the set, then you won't want to report the mean absolute deviation, since you said the mean isn't a good measure. So you would report the IQR or the quartiles in general, and discuss that type for the spread. And so the biggest thing on this day of class is we're going to discuss, why do we need measures of spread? And in class, we'll be going over a packet called Why Do We Need MAD? And we'll really go through what it means and how we can see how to change data to increase or decrease the MAD and what that means. If you are outside of class, you will go through that Why Do We Need MAD packet, and then you will look at the formula, and you will go back to the housing conundrum and see how the mean absolute deviation applies to that. And then we will talk about the standard deviation and how it is measuring the same idea as mean absolute deviation. However, the formula is a little bit different. So it is rated a red day. If you can make it in, it will be very helpful. And then, as always, complete your assignments on Canvas, and then complete that exit ticket just as a quick check-in. For the other day of class, so Thursday's class on week 6, we're going to be talking about percentiles versus percent. Again, this is rated red, and the biggest problem is the vocabulary and the wording when we do interpretation. You've heard percent and percentiles your whole life. We use percentiles when we are comparing things. You saw them on standardized tests. So we'll talk about the normal distribution, what that looks like with the empirical rule that you should have heard of before. And then we're going to talk about those standardized tests. AZ Merit, or it's now called the ASA exam. So, and what that means and how you will use that in your own classroom. So we'll talk about percentiles, meaning a measure of location. You can see here we have a box and whisker plot. We also could have a normal distribution, and we could plot that percentile on that. So these are great topics and applications when you are a teacher, especially if you are in those very specific testing grades and are after, so you can interpret their meaning. So it can be a little tricky, but it can also be very helpful to you as a future educator. So again, on Thursday, if you're not attending class, make sure you go through your assignments on Canvas. If you are attending class, we will be going through that interpreting test scores assignment. And as always, reach out if you need anything. Thanks for watching.